Hi, welcome back to Tweed Thistle Farms. So we're approaching our second year, our second season as flower farmers. And one of the things that I hope this video and these videos are helpful for is that if you're brand new or relatively new, there are so many questions. And longtime flower farmers might not even realize that there are things that we as newbies want to know. And this was something that I had come across and found just so helpful for our first year of flower farming. And I thought maybe to pass that information along to you. I see often online people asking, how do you store the seeds? And there are so many. It's an infinite. It's worse than trying to collect Beanie Babies. You hear about another seed online on one of your favorite YouTubers and you immediately want to go and get that new seed. So you have to have a place to put them in a way that they are accessible when you need them. And I find that just having them in a big Ziploc bag just was not going to work for me. So what I have done was right off the bat, I found these amazing plastic containers that are actually used for photographs, and I have divided them in a way that's helpful to me, especially as being a flower farmer. I need to know what starts in the cool season and what are warm season annuals, and right off the bat, if you can divide those that way, you will be so much better off. Now, over my shoulder I have the boxes that also have vegetable seeds in them, and just keeping them separate, I know where to go for what I need. So for the flowers, what I've done is divided all the varieties. The only thing that's not here are the sunflowers. The seeds are bigger, the packages are bigger, and those are in their own separate container. But for these, so for example, these are for the cool season hardy annuals. Now, if you know anything at all about cool season and warm season flowers, you know that there are different times of when and temperatures that these flowers thrive in. So just like things like cabbages, broccoli, your lettuces, those do not like the warmth of summer and they'll bolt and go to seed. The same is true for your flowers, that there are some that prefer the cool early season of the garden. And so beyond even just liking cool or warm part of the season, it's also whether or not they prefer to be planted directly in the soil outside or started as a transplant. And I often hear it's not up to the gardener, maybe to some slight extent, but it's really not up to the gardener about how the plant should be started or how the seed should be started. It's really up to the seed and what their preferential treatment is. And if we can follow those preferences, our outcome and what we are able to grow will be, we'll be better off for it. So in order to keep things straight for myself, on each of these individual packets, I have marked whether it is T for transplant or D for direct sow. And for direct sow in our area, that only happens in the fall, in the late fall, when the direct transplants or the direct seeding can happen. And the reason for that is the soil temperatures make a big difference in how well or the ability of a seed to germinate. So if you try in the very early spring, in the very cold soil outside, to direct sow bachelor buttons, for instance, those seeds will sit in that cold, damp soil until the soil warms up, which would be much later than starting it indoors in a cell pack or in a soil block where the situation and the soil temperatures can be kept much warmer. So you can direct sow if the soil temperature is warm enough in the fall And that's why I have these marked D, direct sow. So if I get them in the fall, if my beds are prepared and they're ready to go, I can direct sow these in my zone. That's the other piece of the puzzle. There are so many pieces of puzzles to this. Depending on what zone you're in, that is the only thing that your zones tell you. It's not about when you can start seeds. It only tells you whether or not that plant will winter over where you live. So if it's too cold where you live, that plant will not survive in the wintertime. And there are a few that can be wintered over in our zone. We are in 6A in our area of Ohio. So there are a lot of things that you need to find out. What zone are you in? If it's in a zone where these plants, these particular little plants will winter over, you can plant them in the fall. If they don't, then you'll plant them in the spring. Automatically, right off the bat, if you're planting them in the spring, you are going to be planting them as transplants. So that's how I've done it. I've organized them: cool flowers and my warm season flowers. And for example, in our area, pincushion flowers, scabiosa, I would plant as a transplant, T, cool season. I had marked them that way as well. So one that would be direct sown, for example, Bupleurum. Bupleurum is a beautiful filler. I can plant that directly, and did plant that directly in our prepared beds. Last fall, these plants came up and they will be safely overwintered in our area as long as the temperatures don't go crazy cold, although I'm doing this on a day where we had -6 degrees. But hopefully the soil is warm enough, they're protected by the amount of snow that we have, and as long as it is hardy in our zone, which Bupleurum is, those little plants in the snow will be just fine in the spring. And they have a jump start. Their roots have already taken hold in the ground and they are just waiting. They're waiting for the air temperature to be perfect for them and they're going to just take off. But to try to start a seed in the very early spring, the conditions are not right for it. That seed might sit there if it doesn't rot, if it isn't eaten by a bird or some other critter. They'll just wait for the air temperatures, which would be much later. Another example would be bachelor buttons. Those were also direct sowed in the fall. Plants are beautiful, about this tall, and then the winter came and they're just waiting. So you can also start these again then as plants in the springtime, but then you want to plant them, you want to start your seeds about 16 weeks before your last frost, 16 to 12 weeks. And the reason for that is early spring is considered 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. That's when you can plant the actual transplant, 6 to 8 weeks, not a seed, but a plant. So if the plants have been planted 6 to 8 weeks before that date, and I'm about to be photobombed. Lindor. Yeah. I don't think so. Not now. Well, I knew that was going to happen. So another thing that I'd use these for too is if I have moved a seed packet for some reason, like for example, Bells of Ireland, I will put in the ground as a transplant. So it's marked with the T, but I've put these in the freezer specifically because I had heard that that's where they like to be, and I've not grown these before. So they are in the freezer. So if this is helpful, I hope it is. I hope you'll comment and like this video. Lindor, come on. Do I start with a blooper reel when I've only got 6 or 8 videos? Go. He's named after the Indians, the former Indians baseball player, by the way. He was a rescue. So I hope this helps. Each of those packs, I have ones from Johnny's, I have some from Floret in here. All the varieties fit in the one little packet. Poppies are another wonderful one to plant. If you think about how they work in nature, the plant grows, the pods are large, the pods drop the seeds in nature, and that doesn't, they don't get collected up by somebody and get put inside a house, but they come back every year, and that's because they know their timing. They drop the seed waits, it sits in that cold environment, and then at the perfect time it starts with these little plants. Hopefully we're not taking out as weeds in our fall gardens, and then in the springtime they're just the most beautiful flowers. So I hope that helps a little bit. If you can, find these on sale at like your big box craft stores. Sometimes they have the 50% off coupons. Otherwise, Amazon does carry these also. But the nice thing is, when it comes time for me to direct sow, like in this container, the Feverfew, Larkspur, when I'm ready to direct sow these in the garden, I don't have to take this whole case with me. I can just grab this nice little waterproof case, take those with me, I'll sprinkle my seeds, throw them back in the case when I get home, and it's done. It's just a really simple way to keep them sorted. It's also a simple way to know if you have something. If you're wondering, do I have stock? Do I have Snapdragons? Which varieties do I have? They're already sorted. You grab that container and they're there, and you can see what you've got. Where sometimes if they're in a big jumbled mess, it's hard. I am not an organized person. My purse will attest to that. But this has really worked for me, and I thought because it has worked so well, I thought I would share this little tip, and hopefully it might work for somebody else out there. Just take care, have a beautiful day, and stay warm.